fire and hot mess. Won't bring you church dynamics, make you feel free of judgment. My podcast is the one to make you feel blessed, not shameless. Free from shackles and chains. I'm just not. Let's talk about everything. Don't matter what you bring. You gonna leave with something. I promise you'll feel relief. So tune in and check it out. Tune in and check this show out. Avery Michael's new show. It's called what? I'm Not Church. Come on, tune in and check out. I'm Not Church. Come on and have some fun with I'm Not Church. This is that new show. This is that new podcast. Tune into Avery Michael's I'm Not Church. What is up, everybody? It is your boy, your friend, your nephew. Might have been your director, might have been your producer, might have been something at junior camp. You never know. My name is Avery Michael Clark, and this is the first episode, the very first episode of I'm Not Church. And you know, if I'm doing the first episode of a podcast, I got to bring somebody who's been running a podcast, who's been doing a podcast for years, like who's been out there in the world, kind of preaching that good word, letting people know about their thought process and things like that. So my first guest today is the one and only Leon Jones. Leon, welcome to the show.
Man, glad for having me. Appreciate you, man.
All right. So Leon, first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about that podcast, put that little thing out there so you can get people tuning in and things like that.
Okay. Again, my name is Leon Jones. A little bit about me. I'm a AY leader at my church. Shout out to the Burns Church.
Yes,
Appreciate y'all. I love my people there. I'm also a behavioral specialist at a school called Great Oaks Academy. And about my podcast, what was formerly known as the Let's Talk About It podcast, I changed the name because so many people had that name and I wanted to be different. And it is now called the Conversation Podcast, and that is spelled CONSAYTION. I wanted to do a little wordplay on words where we turn conversation into application, man. Just a quick little, promo for y'all. So, the link is in my bio on Instagram. You can type in the Conversation Podcast on Instagram. I post on Facebook as well as TikTok. Uh-huh. So follow the podcast, man. But again, I'm super excited to be here, man. And I love what you're doing. I just love the person that you are in general and what you represent.
Appreciate it.
Man, I'm glad to be here and get that call to share these thoughts with you, man.
Appreciate it. All right. So the first question, this is a question that we're going to ask everybody who brings on. Looking at the world today,
mm-hmm.
What are the biggest problems you see? And what are some changes that could be made to fix those problems?
I always say that America's biggest problem is accountability. I think not a lot of people hold themselves accountable. I think they're so quick to, if I got an issue, I'm going to highlight Avery's issue instead of dealing with my own. And with anything, I feel like we have to deal with ourselves first. So I think accountability is one. And I want to say these go hand to hand, but, giving people grace. I'm starting to understand more like giving people grace. And I think this thing has happened to me. I'm not a judgmental, like a super judgmental person. Like I'm not very critical of people. But for me, I definitely feel like a lot of people, they don't really take the time to do the work on themselves. And so for me, God has always convicted me. Like, I feel like there's no room. I was talking to somebody about this a few days ago. Like, there's no room for any of us to talk about anyone because, I may not smoke and drink, but I still have flaws of my own. And all of us have some flaw that if it got out to the public eye, it's a possibility that we could be embarrassed. But I think what makes us feel better is that I'm going to highlight everybody else's problems because it's easier that way because the pressure is off me. The spotlight is off me and my issues. And so I think, man, accountability and just, giving people grace and not judging people because we truly don't know people's stories. Now, there may be some things that someone is doing that we disagree with, but I'm sure we can say that about ourselves. Like there are some things that we do that people don't agree with. And even we don't agree with personally. We're doing some things that we don't feel the need to be doing or that we don't always like. So I think when you come to an understanding that we're all human, not to use that as a crutch because that doesn't stop you from becoming a better individual, being born in sin and being imperfect. But I do think when you understand that and you look at it from that light, you like, man, let me focus on what I gotta do before I'm
Exactly.
sitting around judging other people because that doesn't move the needle for people. That only pushes people away. And at the end of the day, people are gonna do what they want to do, regardless of what you say, think, and feel.
And I think that's one thing I'm realizing, especially with the world today. Like with because Rich Homie Quan just died. And
Right.
like a lot of people are like, you got some people who are posting like respect, rest in peace, and stuff like that. And you got some people talking about like, oh, you were this and that, and then people are talking about like, yeah, the drug overdose. And so
Yeah.
my thing about it is like, okay, yes, we can focus on how he died and everything like that, but then you also got to focus. I like to look at people's whole life story. Like,
Yeah.
what was he doing? Was he out in the community doing stuff for people? Was he talking to young people? Was he inspiring people? Was he helping people? You never know somebody's full story. And I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. Everybody focuses on the negative part of people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, especially when, and I think a lot of people, like, when you go to church and things like that, like, you may have a person who dresses something that's, some people may feel inappropriate.
Yeah.
And, like, they'll be the first one to say something. But then, like, you find out, with them like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when they came to the church,
Right.
they were doing the same thing and somebody did it to them. And
Yeah.
so in the way I am personally, I'm like, okay, so if it didn't feel right doing it to you,
Yeah.
why would you turn around and do it to the person next?
Yeah, man. Like that's the part that always like confuses me because I'm a firm believer in that, you know, our experiences can be the solution to somebody's problem, bro. Like
Yeah,
I always am confused and I scratch my head when I see people that have gone through some things that, you know, maybe a young woman is going through or a man is going through. And it's like you've been, you know, delivered from that and you choose to be closed off because you feel like you brand new and in a sense you are, but
yeah,
that's the whole purpose of reaching back. Like you didn't go through that. I think people really don't understand. Like we don't just go through things for us, bro. Like
yeah,
it's for us to share our stories and our testimonies. But what you have is a lot of people that they look down on people that are you're looking at a mirror of your former self or your current self with you because a lot of us are not really all the way there. And it's something my pops taught me. Like I asked him a question like, how did you master getting to where you are in your walk? But he's like, it's only just another level. Like I don't master,
yeah,
like you don't just come to an end result when you are growing as a person. It's always a new level because if you stop yourself from growing, then growth can't take place. So I think a lot of times, bro, like people got to reach back and say, hey, man, I went through this same thing. And I want to do my best to make sure that you don't go through the same thing. So here are some
yeah,
tips to help you. Or what matters even more and can have even a greater impact is if you walking with people daily, like holding people accountable to like, hey, man, did you smoke today? Did you text that girl you know you're not supposed to be talking to? Hey, did you
mm,
try to go to that dude's house? Like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because instead of frowning upon people, and another thing is, bro, like with the whole, whether it's dress code or anything, I feel like look at on a tier, like, oh, smokers, the drinkers, the fornicators, that's tier one. We just don't do that at all. And
yeah,
then like, oh, well, I only lie, so I'm on tier two. But in reality, all of these things are wrong, but we rate them like, hey, at
exactly.
least I'm not smoking, at least I'm not selling crack, at least I'm not on crack. But it's like, bro, you're not a person that treats people good. Like that's not good either.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? You're not a person that, you know, uplifts people. You're tearing people down. So I think
yeah,
a lot of times, really, you gotta look in the mirror because that person that you encounter that you may not like how they dress, like you may be looking at a mirror of yourself, and that's not just by happenstance. That's for you to help this person or tell them, like, hey, I was here once. This is how you can
I
get through
got
this.
through it. Yeah, and I think that's my thing because growing up, with me and my cousins, like I had older cousins. So I was always the baby cousin. And I used to be pushed out of the way, moved out of the way. Nobody wanted to hang out with me. Nobody wanted to be around me. Like even my sister, she was like, "Oh, you can get out the room." And so I was like, "Man, I'm like 3 years younger than y'all. How is that?" But they're like, "No, it's the age difference." So growing up, all my younger cousins, I kind of treated them different. Like I always kind of brought them in the room. I was always hanging out with them. I was always doing stuff with them, even still to this day.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go hang out with them and go do all the stuff with them because I was like, I never want y'all to feel the way I felt growing up. Like I don't want you guys in that thing. And it's the same thing with people in the community. Like if you experience that and if you just bring them in, like you said, giving them the guidance, giving them the help, they're more appreciative and they'll grow closer with God. They'll grow closer with life. They'll grow closer with different people, and they'll do the same thing moving forward. It's like, let's change that transition of being holding people accountable for how they're doing it, and let's guide them and help them move forward to a better place. Because I'm like, the world is slowly changing. So is the churches. So is the community. So it's like, if we don't kind of change with it and grab hold of it and still keep Jesus at the stay front of it, the church is just going to crumble and there will be no church there. And I'm like slowly watching a lot of churches die, and they're like, "Oh, where are the young people at? Where are this and that?" And I'm like, the young people may have been there, but because of your standpoint, because of how you treated them, they're like, "I'm going to go somewhere else."
Yeah.
And it's sad to say that, but it's like the world, and I think me and one of my best friends said, the world is very attractive. It's a very attractive thing. And the thing about it is, like, one thing about attractive things is easier to get drawn into it. And then it's harder to leave it.
Yeah.
So my thing about it is, like, if you make church, not saying you make the church worldly, but if you make it like, okay, this is a little different. Okay, the music is a little something. Okay, this and that. You never know. You never know who we can bring, who can do things. I've heard of multiple friends who like went to the club, who went to things. They're like, man, they were playing Kirk Franklin at the club. And I was like, and how did you feel about that? They're like, I felt so wrong about it, but everybody in the crowd knew the song.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe that DJ was trying to tell y'all need to be here.
Yeah.
He might have been telling y'all need to be at church, but I was like, you never know. And it's that moment that I was like, because everybody knows a Kirk Franklin gospel song. If you like everybody, you can go to anybody in the world and be like, yo, you know this, you know Stomp, or you know from Heaven, you know them, and all of them like, do I know that? Of course I know that. And it's like there's a little bit of God in everybody. And I think Terrence Howard said it once. He's like, there's a little piece of God in every person. You just gotta find out where it is. And once you find it, you need to show them your little piece of God. Because once they see it, it's easy for them to show you theirs. Yeah. And I was like, that's a word right there. I was like, if you actually look for it, but he's like, you have to show them yours first. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people, especially in the world. They're not willing to show the God in them first. They'll hide it off and be like, let me see what you're about. Let me see what you're thing. Whereas if you're showing that at the stage front, that person's always going to be willing to show you. And everything like that, because they're seeing the good in the God in you and everything like that. And that's one thing I love about you, Leon, is like you show God in you wherever you are. And people, it's easy for people to walk up to you and have a conversation. People are like willing to friend you and everything like that. And it's the good personality in you. You showing the God in you, and you showing that you have a great skill. So
man. Yeah. And I just think that these people have quote unquote mastered the scriptures, but they haven't mastered the love piece and the character piece. And at the end of the day, my prayer is that when I'm, gone, I'm no longer living, that, people are going to remember how you made them feel. And I know I'm not going to be liked by everybody. I don't try to live my life that way, but I do try to be a person who's peaceful, who is welcoming, and make people feel like, yo, I want to be around this environment that he's in. I want to be around, like I heard Kirk Franklin say, I want to make God famous. And I'm like, when he first said, I'm like, what you mean? He like, yo, there's still Christians around, like still people that love God around. Like I want to pump up Jesus, not saying that Jesus isn't who he is,
Yeah.
but I want to do it in a way where it's like, oh, yo, they still serve God over here. They still do this. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
want to be a part of that. And that's the mentality that I have. I don't have to quote a whole bunch of scriptures, and I'm not knocking scriptures, but I think a lot of these people, they want to show how deep they are, and they really don't have a connection with the people for
Mm.
real. Like, you know a lot of scripture, but you don't, nobody really vibes with you, not because God can't use you, but you're not allowing him to use you because you're
Mm.
going off of flesh and off your own checklist. Like we do a
Yeah.
checklist. A kid that I was with yesterday, we were reading a Sabbath school lesson, and it talked about how we don't encounter salvation by any works of our own, because if that was the case, you'd be saved already. You've
Exactly.
volunteered and you've helped out at multiple youth events. You've been
Oh no. Hold on. We got you back.
Yep. So my whole thing is of good works, a lot of us would be saved. And I think we do it like a checklist. Oh, I'm a pastor. I'm a pathfinder. I'm doing this. But like, you're
Man.
really not reaching people. You really don't have a connection. Yeah, you know the scriptures, but are you really living them? And I saw something that's very impactful, and I try to live my life by. And it says, you can preach a better sermon with your life than your lips. Because a lot of times it's a
Ooh.
lot of lip service. Like my pops would always say, a lot of people are talking loud, saying nothing. Like y'all making all of these posts, are
Mm.
really not getting no traction because the motive is to show how much biblical knowledge you have versus how much biblical knowledge you're willing to share.
Mm.
So it's like my whole thing is I don't have to do the checklist. I'm not against passing out tracts. I'm not against revivals. I'm not against things, but there's a way that you do it. The message is still the same, you know, but we have to be more creative in our method. And for me, a
Yeah.
lot of times it's like there's a thing like when you talked about how people dress, right? Now,
Yeah.
me, I love wearing suits. I love looking nice. But when I'm
Mhm.
not at church, hoodie if the weather permits, and some sweats or some shorts. Now I wear jeans a lot of times when I go out and hang out with my friends or whatever, but like I'm not gonna condemn somebody because they have jeans on because I don't know. And
Their
a lot of
situation.
times we don't know if somebody has a suit and tie. And I feel like if you're that concerned, then do something about it. Provide or
Mm.
donate a suit. Take
Yeah.
them to the mall, spend a little money on them. Or more importantly, it don't always have to be monetary. Spend some time with somebody, bro. Like we
Yeah.
always spending time on the stuff that really don't matter. Like what this person got on. But this person may know just as much as the Bible as you do, and they coming in a white tee and jeans and some Air Force Ones. But it's like, who's to say that God can't? The Bible is full of people who imperfect, terrible people. Moses had a temper. We know people in our circle that has temper. But look at what he did through Moses. David hit on another dude's girlfriend, and basically say he even raped her in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, but God still used him. It
Yeah.
said David was a man after God's own heart. Joseph was done wrong by his brothers and all of this, but God was able to, like, all these different people we can see in ourselves in the Bible. Like nothing new. There's nothing new, bro. Like this is nothing
No.
different than what was going on in the Bible. Like everything is the same. It's just more technology, more access to stuff, bro. So I think
Exactly.
when we realize that there's a way that you do things, bro. Like obviously we have to respect commandments, but there's a way that you go about teaching these things. There's a way that you go about approaching people about wearing a hat in the sanctuary. There's a way that you go about telling people, hey, this is because anywhere you go, bro, you're gonna have to follow rules. And if you don't, there's consequences. Just like in our
Exactly.
walk. God is, and the thing is, if God gives me a choice to follow him or follow something else, who are you to try to tell me what I need to do? And
Exactly.
This is the person that created me. So if God gives me free will, and not to say like I'm just gonna go do whatever I want, but if God is telling me I have a choice on who I will serve, it's like there's a way that things can be done. And the Bible and other things that God puts in our lives is a script and a study guide to how we can live better lives. But I think those who have the study guide actually have to look over it and review it every time they encounter somebody, because if you're not careful, you'll damage your life and you could possibly remove somebody from the kingdom, bro.
And that's true. And I love how you said that remove somebody from the kingdom, because a lot of people don't realize that as like how you treat somebody that has a lasting statement. And a lot of people like that moment, the one thing you did could have like ruined that person's life or made them not even want to come to church, make them not even want to go to a certain area and stuff like that. I've encountered a lot of people there, like it was that one person. I was going to consistently, I was ready to come to church and everything, and that one person changed it. I was like, man. And like, you know, it's there, like as long as that one person's there, I don't want to be at that church. And I was like, man, I wish you wouldn't have had to deal with that. But people don't see the end results of what they do. That's why I tell everybody, like, live your life to the best, live it to the fullest, but treat everybody with respect and kindness. Because you don't know, like that one smile may stop them from doing something that they didn't even want to do. They didn't even want to try. All right. So next question. All right, you ready for this?
Yes, sir.
You are a Chick-fil-A fan, no better restaurant than Chick-fil-A type person. So when the controversy comes up about that Chick-fil-A sandwich versus every other restaurant sandwich, like Chick-fil-A was the first one to do it. And then Popeyes came around the corner. They're like, yo, we got this chicken sandwich that beats Chick-fil-A. And then McDonald's got it. Then Burger King got it. Then all these other restaurants started doing it. How did that make you feel as a Chick-fil-A sponsor, supporter, all the time, always promoting Chick-fil-A? How did that make you feel?
Man, actually, my cousin, I made a video on TikTok, and he was like, man, I got to say it. My younger cousin, he was like, I got to say it, man, Popeyes is better than Chick-fil-A. And I was like, out of all the places you could have chose, you chose Popeyes. And I'm not knocking Popeyes. Like, Popeyes is a cool establishment. But the thing I love about Chick-fil-A is, like, their hospitality and their service, aside from their food, because we know the food is hidden on another level that can't be described nor, communicated with the average individual. But you got to look at the service, bro. Like I've been to Chick-fil-A multiple times, and my order has never came back wrong. You know what I'm saying? You go to McDonald's. I can guarantee you, if I was to go to McDonald's right now, the shake machine still wouldn't be working. And I think the shake machine has been down since I've been in high school, and I graduated in 2017, bro. So that's over, going on 7-8 years, dog. So like, to me? We're just talking about Michigan alone. What establishment can you say that's better in that realm of food that's better than Chick-fil-A? You can't say McDonald's. You can't say Wendy's. You can't say Popeyes, because their chicken sandwiches hit. They have strawberry shakes. They have vanilla shake. They have frozen lemonade. They have so many options that's way better than these places. So it's like, I mean, if you want chicken at Popeyes, you can go get you a bucket of chicken. Chick-fil-A doesn't have that. But a establishment from top to bottom, and then the workers, bro, like the service is everything. Like Popeyes, sometimes you may have some people walk out and then they close down because we understaffed. It's 2 people. You got about 10, 15 individuals in Chick-fil-A getting it done, bro. You're not going to find that nowhere else unless you at a place like Target or Walmart. So it's like, come on, bro. So if anybody wants to challenge me in this place of, and we're just talking about Michigan alone. Now, if we're, talking about places like Cali and Vegas and New York, okay, you might have me there. But if it's not something like an In-N-Out, and like, come on now. Like, if we talking about the Wendy's of the world, like Arby's, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, somebody was like, then somebody came with that, the spirit, the the out of pocket spirit in the comments. They was like, "Oh, the waffle fry's not even good." But you have these type of individuals that make these comments, and you ask them, "Yo, where do you eat at?" And they're like, "Oh, I eat at Arby's." Like, okay, next, delete this application because we don't need to have a conversation. Because look at where you're eating at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why Chick-fil-A. You can go to Chick-fil-A and you're like, "Oh man, I ain't gonna never get my food." The lines are long, wrapped around the building, and you could just pull in the parking lot and you get your food 5 minutes later. Come on, bro. I go to Wendy's. I'm the only individual there. Last week, matter of fact, just to let y'all know, like Chick-fil-A is the best establishment. I go to Wendy's for breakfast, right? The lady takes my order. Only one in line, mind you.
Man.
Like, pull up to the front. We're gonna bring your food out. The lady leaves out of the building. She locks the door and she takes her daughter to school. And then I gotta wait for the guy to come out. Now, mind you, I was still on time for work. But this is the type of foolishness that I'm encountering. So if we talking about what's the best, it's no competition. Chick-fil-A is in a category and class of its own. Period. Point blank.
He said the lady locked the door and took her daughter to school.
I'm not lying to you.
Right.
I promise you. It's crazy.
I would have
dealing with.
I'm not gonna lie. I went to McDonald's the other day, and I was upset because so you know they had the chicken McGriddles. So it's not at every McDonald's in Flint. Like there's certain ones that you got to go to. So I pulled up. So I ordered on the app, and like I'm gonna just pull up, pick up my food. I pulled around, and like yeah, here's my order. Da da da. The lady was like, "Man, we don't even make chicken this early." I'm like,
come on, man.
They're like, "You don't have to wait." So I was like, "All right." So I was sitting there waiting 5 to 7 minutes for them to bring out the food, and I'm like, "Okay, but if you got the order about like 15 minutes ago."
Come on, man.
I put the order before I even got on the highway to come get y'all.
Exactly.
And I'm like, how in the world did you wait till I pulled up to start cooking the chicken? To start cooking it now? I was like, you could have been had it ready.
Man, that's what we're dealing with, man.
So I do understand, like, because I'm a lover of Chick-fil-A. I do love Chick-fil-A. Like, when we got it in Flint, I was like, whoo, thank you. Because I was like, to have to go all the way to Detroit to get a Chick-fil-A. I was mainly only having it in Atlanta. I was like, it's. I'm not driving an hour to get a meal. Like this Popeye is gonna have to hit for this. All right, so we down to the last 3 minutes of the interview.
Right.
So last question: what is some words of advice, encouragement that you would give to people who are like thinking about starting a podcast or thinking about doing things in the community to help young people? What are some words of encouragement that you would give?
One thing that I definitely feel like people should know is that you got to know your target audience. I think so many people jump into not just podcasting, but anything because it's the wave. And me and my cousin talk about this all the time. Like people are doing things simply because it's the wave. And in my opinion, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But me being a person who is a big why person, I don't want to just do something because everybody else is doing it. Like me, I'm weird in a way where if everybody is watching this show, I won't purposely watch it because everybody's doing this. Because I don't want to be like everybody else. And it's not to say like, because you got people now, you look around, you got a whole bunch of basketball players who have podcasting, where maybe a year or two ago, they probably would have never thought about it, done it at all. But you credit the guys like Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, who are former NBA players, who started that whole NBA players podcast, and they created a lane for themselves that allow other NBA players to say, hey, we got some ideas. We've been thinking about doing this. Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? We never, like, when you're creating, you get inspiration from somewhere. Like, everybody has done that, whether it's music, whether it's, you know, a clothing brand, like whatever it is. But understand your why and your target audience. For me, I've always loved using my voice to uplift and empower people and make people feel special. So the podcasting was another avenue to do that. I have always been doing like encouraging messages on my social media since about 10th grade. So
Gotcha.
my brother was always on my head about, man, you should create a YouTube. You should do. And then during the pandemic, I created my own motivational page, and then that went really well. And then from there, I'm like, yo, I think me having a podcast, because I was watching all of the smoke. I was watching $1 Million Worth of Game. I was watching Lecrae's podcast, like, and I had things in my own life that I had experienced or conversations that I felt were interesting that I would have with my pops, with my older brother, or just friends and family in general. And I'm like, yo, we need a platform to where we can do that, because a lot of times people won't share their opinions because they feel like I got to be a Kanye, I got to be a Michelle Obama for people to respect me. But it's people out here walking our neighborhoods that got free game that can bless somebody and can help somebody go to the next level, that can break a generational curse. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just going to be on live just chopping it up. I can do that on FaceTime or over the phone or through text. I'm not going to be on live just to be like, hey, y'all, like, nah, I'm not. Whatever I do, I want it to be intentional, positive, and send a message that's going to encourage somebody. That's why my tagline is, we turn conversation into application. So hopefully whatever conversation, whether it's from my point of view, my guests, or whoever, you take something that we've talked about and you can somehow apply it to your life. So, man, just knowing why you want to start a podcast. Now, if you, and then being consistent. My cousins, my friends, my family always tell me, like, bro, I can't start a podcast because I'm not consistent like you, bro. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
But it's not work to me. It's something I love to do. It's another way to create a platform to help others. And that's really all I want to do in anything that I do, help somebody, shed light on something. And so just understanding your why. So if you just want to get on there and you want to talk about your experiences, that's cool. If you just want to be on there and chop it up about sports, like, do that. But be a student of your craft. Like, don't. And for me, it's not like I want to get paid for this. I told somebody the other day, like, there's some things that I want to do with my podcast that's in the works. But if I never make a dime from my podcast, I would still continue to do it because it's something that I truly love and that I want to bring to other people. So I would say, know your why and your target audience. And also, you know, be consistent. Don't do something because it's a wave. Do it because you have to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And if you feel like my why is not substance-based or not something that I want to bring to people, then you shouldn't be doing it. But I would say know your why and just be consistent in all that you do.
All right. Well, we want to thank you, Leon, for being a part of the I'm Not Church podcast, episode 1, the pilot episode. So we hope you guys tune in. Check out the next episode. It will be featuring the great Angeline Gardner. We call her PM.
Yes, sir.
I promise you. That one's going to have you probably laughing because I'm going to pick on her a lot. So thank you again, Leon, for being a part of the show. And check out his podcast, The Conversation. It is a good podcast. You will enjoy every episode. I promise you that.
When it's gonna hit, can you do something? Like you go, I'm not